So I think it's going to be kind of just us, which is nice and intimate. So let's do some introductions. Are you sure that you don't want one of these? Because we've been talking a lot, and you might want to stock up on calories. What we're going to do here is we're just going to have a bit of an open forum for people to ask questions, because what we have here is quite an interesting collection of creative and pastries and gummies that apparently you're not getting today. To my left is Dark Natasha. Round of fucking applause. And to the left of her is Rukis. Now, are we all familiar with their respective oeuvres? Let's move this over here. Dark Natasha is an artist, and so is Rukis, and we were actually hoping to get, don't worry about it. We're actually hoping to get the Nightfox from Black Paw Publications, distributes a lot of Sofa Wolves products in Europe. So, Dark Natasha, how are you today? Would you like to tell the class a little bit about what makes you so spectacularly awesome? What a start.
I don't know.
Well, we all saw the art show or the art auction yesterday, and your pieces went for really crazy amounts of money.
Cool.
So blasé, so casual.
Oh, well, it's part of being an artist. I don't think there's very many artists that I can even think highly of their art. We're always learning, always trying to improve.
All right.
Always our worst critic.
I think we have a fair few writers in this room who know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, artists being chefs, and writers, and musicians,
surgeons, yeah.
So it's an art form. It evokes an emotional response.
I know, a rock hard emotional response. I couldn't agree more. But before we move on to Rukis, who obviously we all know what she's doing here, what kind of publications have you been involved in your last week? No, still you, Natasha.
Oh, me?
You.
I didn't trust Rukis, so I didn't think.
I just
before.
On straight places, Rukis.
Yeah.
We should have printed out masks. No, but seriously, because you've done some work for comics, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I think the very first comic I did was back in the day when it was still Radio Comics. No, Antarctic Press.
Aren't they still running?
Yeah, they're still running.
Yeah.
They're still running. They just branched off, and I think Antarctic does more anime style now.
Yeah.
And then Radio now does a lot of the furry titles.
Genus, Milk, trying to think of a couple of other radio
Furlough.
comics. Furlough, yes, that's the one.
That one's a newest Dark Desires. And a couple other small titles.
So what was it like working with that in those early days?
It was great. It was really easy. I mean, all you did is they kind of had a little advertisement in the back of their book, and they said, well, if you want to send in some submissions of stories or comics themselves, if you want to do a cover, just send copies, and then we'll review them to have produced onto whatever next issue we have. Okay, I'll give that a shot. So I sent some stuff out to them, and they said, hey, these would be great. And that's how I kind of started off. I think it was a very early issue of Furlough, and then another early issue of what they used to produce was called Wildlife, which was another Anthropomorphic one. And it wasn't until they branched off into their second company that they produced Genus.
And that would be Radio Comics.
Right, which they go by Sim Factory.
Oh.
Adult stuff.
Oh, okay, so there's even further branching going on. All right, so this was all sort of the pre-digital era, we take it. I mean, since you were sending copies instead of just files.
No, I sent files. I didn't
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought that you've been around since, pretty much the Gutenberg era. I mean, your name is so ingrained in the furry fandom.
No, just since '98. I'm not one of
The hardcore
legends. Yeah.
legends, let's call them euphemistically. All right, cool. Well, thanks for that.
Sure.
Now, Rukis.
So
Well, you've been selling some stuff in the dealers den today, as well as Natasha.
Yeah.
And there's one product in particular that I know I was very interested in picking up. Unfortunately, I had the goal to show up like 2 hours after the dealers den opened, and they were gone. So maybe you could tell us a bit about that.
Cruelty, I'm guessing, is what you're referring to.
That's right.
Yes. It's a comic. It's technically, I guess, it would be considered a graphic novel because it's longer than, I think it's like 30-something pages or so is basically the cutoff. There's no real official cutoff, but...
Well, the general rule is the difference between a comic and a graphic novel is 20 pages and $20.
All right. Well, okay. It's good to know. Okay. Well, then it's odd then because it's priced like a comic, but it's actually 44 pages long. So I guess it's a graphic novel that's priced like a comic. And I think one of the reasons we do sell out of it so quickly is because it's priced really low. And we did that on purpose. We really wanted everybody to be able to afford it. I was more interested in getting, as many people a copy than charging like a whole ton of money for it. Plus it's black and white.
A fair amount of money.
Yeah, but it's black and white anyway. If it was a full color, we would have to charge at least $20 or so for it just to make back the printing cost.
Yeah.
But just the cover's color, so. Yeah, it's a comic. It's a coming out comic, obviously. It's of a male persuasion, but there are 2 story paths you can choose inside of it where the characters either choose to remain friends or they choose to become romantically involved.
How does that work? Not having seen the comic, obviously.
Sorry. You can read through most of it for free online. The only pages that aren't online are the adult pages, which is all 6 out of 44. So most of the comic is free on FA. And that's another reason I think we sell so many of it is people have already seen it. It's had a lot of exposure already. So I guess like a good way to sell a comic is to give it away for free first.
Turns out.
It worked for me. But it works. The path is pretty simple. There's a point where the characters have a decision to make, and you can either skip to a page where they resolve to be friends and you continue the story from there, or you can follow the more interesting route where they pursue their feelings for each other in a more sexual direction. And I can't personally say that I have a favorite route, though I do. But I stated it publicly, I suppose. I think everybody at this point knows. But the point is that the story can be read the same no matter which path you choose. Because the story is really more about their friendship than it is about their any kind of a sexual relationship. It's supposed to kind of make that point that no matter whether or not sex is involved, the friendship is the same.
Sounds like a very interesting experiment.
I guess, yeah. It was originally only meant to pursue the one path, but I also originally didn't even intend to print it, so a lot of things changed 20 or so pages into it. There were a lot of people on FA going like, screaming at the top of their lungs, like, no, don't do it, or do it. I decided to do the 2 paths, and then we eventually published it, and we put it in the published version.
Well, that sounds kind of like what Blotch did with Dog's Days of Summer.
I don't know. I wasn't around when Dog's Days of Summer came
man.
out. It's not like I wasn't born. I was.
The singularity hadn't yet worked.
Yes, no, I didn't even know furry existed until 2008 or so. So Midwest Fur Fest, I think 2008 was the very first furry experience I ever had. I had no idea what it was all about.
And now you've sold out at European Con.
Yeah,
5,000 miles from home. Talk about diving in head first.
Yeah. So yeah, I obviously I've spoken with Blotch and I've talked to them about their experience with Dog Days of Summer, and I would never lie and say they didn't inspire me, because they did. They were the ones who told me, if you really want to get your name out there, the best thing to do is a comic. Ken Cat in particular was really just really nice and really encouraging throughout the whole comicking process. So I have to give a big huzzah to them for for pushing me in the right direction.
Huzzah!
Yes, huzzah! So,
All right, thanks very much for that introduction as well. For those of you who maybe don't know yet, I'm Alex Vance. I run Bad Dog Books. We publish anthologies like Fang, the erotic anthology, and Roar, all of which is pure fiction. A couple of novels. We've branched out into graphic products. One of them is my own, Heathen City, which I produce with very good, with a very diverse cast of authors, signed obviously. And another we recently put out is called Fred Savage, which was also an interesting one because it appeared for free on Fur Affinity as well. That's actually where I found it. I saw these pages coming up on Fur Affinity, but you know, this is pretty good shit. This is definitely something we want to publish. So I started talking to the artist. It wasn't until much later in the development process that we realized that his originals were actually kind of small. This is the downside of working on digital, because he could produce these. I mean, he inked them, and then the colors were all digital. But the files that he had, the Photoshop files, he'd reduced them by 50% to save some space on his hard disk, and I could have fucking strangled him when I found that. But we worked it out in the end. So yeah, this was supposed to be kind of an open forum, a question and answer kind of thing. We have two artists with us, and a publisher, and the ghost of Nightfox, who may or may not wander in here, depending on how busy his schedule is. So most of the people in this room are writers, so it's going to be a bit of an interesting dynamic. So let's open it up. Who's got something that they want to ask either of these fantastically beautiful ladies next to me?
I had a question. Before you were talking about when you had your first experience in publishing and how you said it was quite easy, you just sent some stuff off and basically got a comic back. What kind of negotiations, how did it work when you were negotiating for commission fee payment, whatever? How did you go about that?
Usually if they haven't already stated in their rules as to what they will give,
What they'll pay you, yeah.
then you can work something out, and depending on what they say, I mean, some comic publishers can't offer a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just printing costs are outrageous. And if you want to keep the comic within a reasonable price, they can't really pay the writers and the artists very much.
Mm-hmm.
So you can work something out to an agreement, and hopefully, both of you are happy with what you get.
and if I could say something actually to reply to that. Most of the benefit of being in a publication is not the money. Because the money is so minimal, even with like really big publications nowadays. It's the exposure. The more exposure you have, the more people are going to be interested in your stuff, and then when you do personal projects, they'll sell better. You'll get more attention at conventions when you have a table that you're trying to sell off of, or at an art show, something like that. Just every bit of promotion eventually adds up. So if you can get into a publication for free, I would do it, honestly. Really.
Lay the groundwork and then see what comes later.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually agree with her on that. I mean, when we did the Nubis Dark Desires, it was not to make money at all.
Yeah.
We just did it because we're like, hey, we all want to draw Nubis. This sounds like fun. All right, let's get together and figure something out. And we got such a good response off the first issue that we're like, well, okay, let's do another one. We did another one. And when we got to the fourth one, though, we decided to stop and call that it. But yeah, we don't make much money off that at all, if any. It's more of just something we enjoyed, and even the covers that we do for radio now, we just usually give Ellen something. Ellen, she runs radio.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and it's like Rukis says, I mean, the more you get your work spread out there, the more attention you're going to get. They'll say, oh yeah, I remember seeing that, and I read that in so-and-so, and you start picking up fans. And once you start picking up fans, be sure to kind of follow up with more new stuff to keep them interested. If you don't do that, you'll start losing them to other writers or other artists.
Yeah.
It's like con crud. Spread it around.
Knock wood, everyone right now.